Innerphase Video, in cooperation with Fairfield Federal, presents Fairfield Today. Brought to you by Fairfield Federal Savings and Loan, Fairfield Medical Center, Fair Hope Hospice and Palliative Care, the Frankie Smith Funeral Home, Fairfield County Adam H., Dagger Law, and the Fairfield County Board of Developmental Disabilities.
Hello friends, and welcome to Fairfield Today. I'm your host Paul Jasson, and today we are telecasting from the offices of Innerphase Video, and I think we're all familiar with what that reason might be. The COVID-19 virus is around us, and you'll notice when we talk to our guests, we'll be social distancing, keeping our proper distance apart, and that'll be the theme of the show as we talk to our guests for the next couple of weeks, all about the virus and the effects it have on so many parts of the community. And I think of that Grateful Dead song, "What a Long, Strange Trip It's Been." And this is our first show in 50 days, I think a long time since we've had a show on. So it's nice to be back with you. Shane's back as our cameraman. We're good to be back, and it's a pleasure to have with us as our first guest, the Mayor of Lancaster, Dave Scheffler. And David, thanks for making yourself available, not virtually, but
not
being
virtually.
here.
I'm used to virtual things.
Yes.
I
Yes.
have typically 3 or 4 meetings a day virtually.
You've gotten much better at this, haven't
yes.
you?
Oh, yes. So this
Zoom, we all learned a
on
new
Zoom,
term, Zoom meetings.
Microsoft Teams, Uber or something or other. Yes, there's a number of them.
I don't know if, for a while, that's certainly the new normal,
Yes.
how things are going to be run. It's not going to change in the next day or so.
And I think that so many people have gotten accustomed to these virtual meetings that it makes sense to do them that way.
A lot of people say maybe in the future some of that may occur.
Getting in your car and driving to a central location, it's just zoom in on it.
If you don't have, if it looks like the Brady Bunch, maybe, but if you have like 20 people, I suspect that's a little more. Have you been in a big one like that?
I've been in
with a lot of mayors.
Well over 100, yes.
On Zoom?
Yes.
And
yes.
Is that
they don't
doable?
all show on. Oh yeah, there you have to page the screens across to see all of them.
But that was workable. You got.
Oh yeah,
okay.
sure.
All
yeah.
right. Well, that may be the new normal for a while, and even after that, like you say, maybe we'll find some things out here that work out better. Working from home for people, I'm sure people in your line of work and in the city, you found out that people work at home, and maybe that works out better in some cases.
Yeah, for the most part, city employees are still reporting to the office. We have selected administrative people that are working from home or alternating days, back and forth at home. The admin staff and the mayor and service safety director's office are alternating. Now they're back now.
Yeah.
Coming into the office every day, but for a number of weeks they alternated. One day a week they were both in there, so which helped out, but their phones are forwarded to their cell phones, so it was completely seamless as far as the public knowing where they were sitting. They were still answering their phone, responding to emails, so it worked well.
Well, as I mentioned at the outset, this is our first show in 50 days, 6 weeks, 7 weeks or so. As you look back for that time frame for the city and as the mayor, just some opening thoughts on this, how it's been this last 7 weeks.
Well, for me, the days are going by at Roadrunner speed. Every Friday I go, how did it get to be Friday? Yesterday was Monday. For my wife, and I'm sure other families or citizens that are spending their days at home, kind of isolated and quarantined, the days go by at snail speed.
Sure.
So I've been going to the office every day for usually longer than 8 to 5, and lots of meetings outside of those times. So it's been hectic. My number one job has been lobbying and working with our congressmen and our state legislators to get us money as a rescue. That's going to be critical going forward. Our income tax receipts were down $800,000 in April compared to April of 2019, which is a big drop. And it's going to get worse before it gets better. So I know there's been a lot of talk and publicity about budget cuts and layoffs, and that's certainly a result of the virus and all the ramifications of that. We did have 6 firemen that tested positive for the virus and others that had symptoms but ended up not testing positive. So That threw the fire department staffing into turmoil for a while. So it's been interesting. I don't know that I ever want to do this again.
We'll talk about probably everything you've opened up right there as the show moves on, and probably more. But as you do some of your meetings, say with local businesses and talk to people virtually for the most part around town, how do you think let's just look at the downtown for a moment. How do you think most of the downtown is holding up?
Well, some of the restaurants have completely closed and they're not open for carryout. The ones that are open for carryout seem to be doing okay. I have a bird's eye view of Maria's Mexican restaurant, and yesterday was Cinco de Mayo, and I counted as many as 17 people lined up the sidewalk waiting to pick up their food. And from probably 5:30 when I started watching until at least 7:30, there was a long line outside of Maria. So some are doing well. I know they're all anxious to get reopened. Hopefully we won't have any casualties, businesses that won't reopen. I know that we had a few depart downtown, but those spaces have been filled already with new retailers or relocated retailers, so that's good. Mm-hmm. I know there is one space for rent downtown that somebody that left as a result of the virus. So, once they get reopened, that will tell the story. I think everybody's anxious to get reopened and start going back to business.
Part of the issue becomes now, as you talked about it, once we start reopening, and it seems to be like a two-headed monster. There's one side that's all about the health factor, and that's a big part of it. Another side is the economy. You can't keep everything closed, or there will be no business to open after a while. And I know that doesn't fall on you. That falls on the governor and Dr. Acton. So as you look at the press conferences they hold every day, and I'm sure you watch most, if not all of those, to get some guidance, and you talk to them, I'm certain, periodically. How do you think the governor and Dr. Acton are doing?
Well, I think they've done an outstanding job of keeping the virus infections down to, I don't know if manageable level is the right adjective to use, but down to something controlled.
Flattening the curve.
Flattening the curve. Certainly that's happened. I know in talking to Jack Genoso at our hospital, my last conversation with him is they had only had 5 COVID patients in our hospital. And I know they have laid off many professionals out there because their occupancy is a tiny fraction of what it typically is.
And a big part of that, I'm sure, was the surgeries.
Yes.
None of that.
Surgeries, and they're open back up.
Okay.
My daughter is a surgery nurse, and they started hot and heavy yesterday.
Good.
Doing surgeries. So that's a good thing. There is a vocal minority of people that are calling for immediate reopening, and I get many messages every day, you need to reopen, you need to reopen. But I'd like to point out that mayors and the governor has no authority to close or open anything. If you will take note, all of the directives and orders were signed by Dr. Acton, the director of the Ohio Department of Health, and the local health department is the enforcement agency, not the mayor, not the city police. So it's really up to the health department to monitor and enforce those things. If there is an issue, the city and Lancaster Police Department will back them up if necessary, but the health department is the enforcement agency. So while there's a vocal minority calling for reopen, there are just as many saying don't reopen, it's too early, public health is in jeopardy, don't do it. So I'm seeing both sides of that. The group that thinks it's too early and doesn't want to reopen isn't as vocal or as militant, I guess, if you want to say that, as the reopening crowd. For one thing, they don't want to be out in the public being exposed. and many of them are senior citizens. So it's an interesting time with a lot of controversy on each side.
You touched again a little bit too in your opening remarks about unemployment in the city, and those are things that come when the money comes, when it doesn't come. So I assume a lot of your calls day to day are with, say, a Tim Schafer or the governor's office or the feds about when is the money going to be coming?
Yeah. So it's more with Congressman Stivers and Senator Portman and Senator Brown, because they're the ones that control it. Yeah, it will pass through the state. And I know the original, it's complicated to explain. The original CARES money that came through Ohio got $4.5 billion. That was allocated 45% to local governments and the 55% to the state. The 45% is about $2.2 billion. $2 billion, of which the local governments with a population of 500,000, which is 4 counties, Montgomery, Hamilton, Cuyahoga, and Summit, and the city of Columbus. Those are the 5 entities of population over 500,000 that got direct money. They qualified for $800 million of the $2 billion that is allocated to local governments. That $1.2 billion that's left somehow will get to local governments eventually. The Senate is introducing a bill to distribute $350 million of that through the local government fund formula, which would bring Lancaster about $1.2 to $1.3 million. Unfortunately, right now it is limited to reimbursement for COVID-related expenses, of which we don't qualify for any, as most cities don't. COVID-related expenses that exceed approved budgets. So for instance, in our fire department, we approved a budget for 12 months of overtime. We have used up almost all that 12 months of overtime, but we haven't exceeded the budget. So despite the fact we have direct COVID-related expenditures for overtime, we don't qualify to get reimbursed for any of that because we haven't exceeded our approved budget. There is some movement toward the feds allowing that to be used for lost revenue replacement or for direct police and fire salaries. We haven't gotten there yet, but we're working in that direction. So there's still $850 million sitting in state coffers or on its way to state coffers that we don't know how that's going to be distributed or when that's going to be distributed or what the strings attached will be for local governments.
Talking with Mayor Dave Scheffler from Lancaster. We'll be back with Dave and talk some more about the issues that affect the city and all things COVID-19 related in just a moment.
Fairfield Federal. When it comes to our customers and our community, we go above and beyond to help. Our people make the difference.
It's a hometown bank. It's located here in Fairfield County. Branches are convenient. They're located here in Pickerington, where my office is. I'm in Lancaster a lot, and they have plenty of branches there. And I much prefer dealing with the hometown banks rather than the larger nationwide chain banks.
So far, everybody's been so personable, and for us to bank with the local bank, and we bank in Lancaster, it's been so wonderful because we'll call somebody, Steve will call somebody, and they'll get back to us right away, or they'll say, okay, we're going to make a decision in the basement tomorrow, and they'll get back to us, rather than calling a bigger bank where we had to wait and we didn't always get the same person the next time we called for a investment banking opportunity or getting something appraised, any of those kind of things.
Everybody is very customer friendly. A lot of times I'll bring my dog Bear with me, and the staff love him here, and of course he loves them and the treats that he gets. So it's just a nice kind of a family type environment.
Personal or business banking, whatever you need, we take it seriously because we know you do. Stop by today at any of our 3 locations and see why the difference is clear. Fairfield Federal Savings and Loan specializes in banking that revolves around you.
Member FDIC Equal Housing Lender.
Welcome back. We want to thank the good folks at Fairfield Federal. Although we're not here in their spacious lobby today, we're telecasting from the offices of Innerphase Video. But certainly the virus, the COVID-19 virus, has affected banks as well as all the other businesses. And with the 3 locations that Fairfield Federal has, their lobbies, of course, are not open, but drive-throughs are, phones are. So you can still call them, and certainly this is the time, if you haven't had an opportunity to learn about internet banking, this is your time. You can go on fairfieldfederal.com, see most of the information that you would go in to talk about. Certainly the ATMs are available and the locations are on there if you've never used them, where you can go for them, but you still can use the drive-through. So certainly with Fairfield Federal and all the banks, things are in a different time frame right now. I'm not sure it's the new normal, but it's the new normal for now. So again, fairfieldfederal.com, they have all the information about hours and drive-throughs and all that, fairfieldfederal.com. Dave, we're back for just a couple of minutes yet, and you're talking about, I'm sure, some of the frustration that rests with you about the money's out there. When will it filter down to where it's needed? You hear that with unemployment, with everything, with the stimulus checks. When will it get to the people that need it? As far as the city goes, unemployment yet has not been an issue.
It hasn't. Collections from withheld taxes on payroll run a month behind.
Okay.
So in April we collected March, it was down a little bit, but nothing significant. But in May we'll see the big hit.
Rubber hits the road then.
Rubber hits the road in May, and as I said, we had an $800,000 difference in April compared to April of 19 in collections, and that's from people not filing their tax returns because they're now not due till July 15th.
Sure.
Interesting fact, stimulus checks, City of Lancaster, $36 million.
Really?
$36 million. Yes, and that's non-taxable.
Yeah.
Yeah, no strings attached, and hopefully that will get out, and I'm sure it's already out in the economy. I know I've talked to people that they've purchased a new barbecue grill, a new fire pit, new patio furniture.
Good. That's great.
It's out there.
I mean, that's what it's for.
The sales tax.
Stimulus.
The sales tax is going to help the county.
Sure.
City doesn't get any of that, but yeah, it's stimulus and it's out there working.
As we talked about unemployment, has the virus hit? You talked about a small number of firemen have it. Any other city employees involved? Do you do any testing to find this out?
First responders get special consideration for testing, and that didn't happen originally. Originally, it was still taking 8 to 10 days
Sure.
to get tested. They now qualify for the quick test. So we have had other employees that had symptoms but didn't test positive. So in that regard, we've been very fortunate. Most of the departments are still working full speed, sanitation, water pollution control, gas department, engineering, they're all going full steam ahead because the business of the city does not stop. So most of the people that can work at home are administrative types that can do their job either place, take a computer home, have their phones forwarded, etc. So it's working out very well. We have not reopened City Hall at this point. That possibly will happen at the beginning of next week. And maybe only by appointment only. But City Hall's been closed for, I think, 5 or 6 weeks.
Sure.
And we do have a lot of public come in to pay their utility bills and to file their income tax return. We have a drop box outside that both of those things can be handled through the drop box. So it's all been going very well from that respect.
Well, we have, again, this is our first show back, and we have so many things to talk about. We've got through a lot of them with that. We didn't even get to touch about the income tax levy. That's certainly uppermost in the mind of you, along with all the other things you have going on. Could I talk you into coming back next week, and we could talk more about this, but mostly about the income tax levy?
Certainly.
That'd be great. Mayor Dave Scheffler with us today, and we appreciate that very much. We'll be back next week with Dave Scheffler again and talk about more about the city and how this is affected. We'll have Deb Connell coming up and talk at Lancaster Festival after this.
Frankie Smith Funeral Home and Crematory in Lancaster and the Johnson Smith Funeral Home in Baltimore have a long and wonderful history of serving our community. Feel free to give us a call at 740-653-0652. Stop in and see us at either of our two locations, 405 North Columbus Street in Lancaster and 207 South Main Street in Baltimore. Respect for tradition, regard for change.
Did you know that 2/3 of teens and young adults who report abuse of prescription medicines are getting it from people they know, including friends and family? We need to remember to secure them in a safe place, even lock them up if necessary. Monitor your medications so you know exactly how many pills are in each bottle. And finally, keep track of your refills. If you are done with their use, properly dispose them to avoid abuse. You can do this in a number of ways. 1. Take them to a local drop box at the Lancaster or Pickerington Police Departments or at one of our drug take-back events. 2. Take the drugs out of their containers, mix them with cat litter or used coffee grounds in a container, seal and place them in the trash. Remember to remove all personal information from your pill bottles. Or 3. Check the prescription information regarding the specifics if the medication could be flushed, or call your pharmacist. Remember, if you are done with its use, properly dispose to avoid abuse.
This message is brought to you by the Fairfield County Adam H. Board.
Hello, friends, and welcome back to Fairfield Today. Thank Dave Scheffler for stopping in, talking about all things coronavirus with the city of Lancaster. It's a pleasure to have him with us, and again, we'll have him on next week to talk about more things too. We're not here at Fairfield Federal as we typically are. We're at the studios of Innerphase Video. The banks will be open up as the reopening situation in phases occurs. The banks will be open up, so they're not open right now. Hopefully very soon we'll go back in our normal downtown lobby location at Fairfield Federal. But as we talk about all things coronavirus related, which every show will be doing for a while, that'll be the overtone of everything. Pleasure to have with us the Executive Director of the Lancaster Festival, Deb Connell. Deb, normally we'd be discussing now, we're getting geared up, we know who the big acts are, we'd be talking about how excited everybody is, but it's a different time. It's something none of us had ever expected through no fault of anything that anybody's done. Everybody's worked hard, but things have changed, and we heard a few weeks ago that the Lancaster Festival would have to be canceled. I bet this was heartbreaking to you and your staff.
Thank you for having me on today. It's great to see a live in person.
Instead of Zoom.
Yeah, instead of Zoom. Lots of meetings that way. Yes, of course, it was absolutely devastating when we came to the realization that we couldn't hold the festival this year. It was a decision that was between myself and the board and Gary Sheldon and really our city officials, our national officials who are giving us the guidelines of what we can and can't do right now. So the festival will go on. It'll be a very strange year. I never imagined, my second year that canceling an entire festival would be a part of my position.
Sure.
I never imagined that it would be.
What is that, 36 years now?
We finished our 35th year. This would have been our 36th year. So, in my head, part of my role, the worst thing I could think of was we would have to cancel a concert due to weather. So never in my wildest dreams I imagined that a global pandemic would be rolling through. And but you know what? The main focus is to keep our guests and our volunteers and our employees safe. We have to do that. I would never forgive myself if one person stepped into a concert and ended up losing their life because of it. So we were trying to figure out other plans. What was our plan B going to be if we couldn't hold the large concerts out at OUL? What else could we do? And then as it progressed, and it seemed to progress very quickly, the ability to hold a large event just became too risky. And for us, we had to cancel so early because there's kind of a break date, if you will, on the contracts that we do.
Sure.
That if we go past a certain date, we have to honor those contracts at 100%.
Had you signed those some of the contracts?
And the festival was ready to go. We had every single act booked. We had, everything had been completely rounded out. So, and I will have to tell you, it's much harder to undo a festival than it is to put one together.
You've had experience on both sides now.
I have, yeah. I hope that does not become my legacy with the Lancaster Festival, having to take apart an entire festival, but. We'll do what we can to support the community, to bring art and music to Lancaster, to Fairfield County, to the state of Ohio, and support our musicians. Part of the mission of the festival is to keep those musicians working, no matter what that working looks like.
Well, and I wonder, now again, it makes such perfect sense that everything has to be canceled, and at this point. We thought, well, it's short term, but as the longer it goes, more we are not sure about things like the fair yet.
Right.
I just saw the Marion County Fair canceled. Of course, they're much closer. We're much further down the road in October, but you just don't know.
Right.
Even it's unclear about what the summer will look like,
right. What
even into the fall will look like. There'll certainly be some changes, things we've never seen before. These are untested waters.
They are, and it was kind of the perfect group of people. To make this decision, considering Jack Genoso is my board president right now. He's absolutely hating that this is his last year on the board, the last year as president on the board. He'll remain on the board. But, he's also the president of the hospital. So, thank goodness we had him as sort of a direct line
inside
to the CDC and the governor's office. John Cochis, our EMA director, he sits on our site and safety committee. Ani Cordell, who is the director of Health and Human Services in town, she is an executive on the executive committee for our board. So, our board works really well together, and we had just the right group of people to get us the information that we needed to make an intelligent decision. We're trying whether the performances are virtual or live. They're fantastic. Bad Influence took everything that they needed and went all the way up to Marion for us to Brian Jester's studio at JCR Studios, Sound Studios. Fantastic performance. And this was a fundraiser for the festival. While we're shut down and can't have concerts, we still need to find a way to raise some funds.
Sure.
So people have been very generous and made some great donations during the Bad Influence concert. But it's about staying relevant too, bringing music to the community, keeping those bands working. I know myself, I had a virtual party with some friends, had some snacks, had my favorite beverage there.
Not virtual beverage?
No, not virtual with that beverage. Put them up on the big screen. It was awesome to see.
Nice.
It was the next best thing to being there live.
So again, fundraising still, just like churches or anything else, even though day-to-day activity is perhaps cut down, things have to go on, and you've got some other plans throughout, without the big concerts for the festival, to keep the festival in the front.
Right, we do. We're going to do a couple of different things. We're going to do some art activities for kids, some art lessons during the day to kind of fulfill that.
Nice.
That portion of the homeschooling that kids are missing out in an art class right now. We're going to be filming those and putting those on. We'll have some other concerts coming up on July. The very last one will be July the 24th, which would have been the Friday night before our first big Saturday concert. It would have been Art Walk night. Yep. Actually, the person who was our tribute band for this year, who is an Elton John tribute, is going to be doing a concert for us. It won't be a full concert, but it will be an interactive concert. And he's a great guy. He's from Canada. He would love to come down and come to the studio that Brian has set up too, but he can't get into the United States right now. We'll also have one of the other ones that we have ready to go is the band from Fairfield Medical Center, Vital Signs. Yeah. We'll be doing a concert for us too. We're working out all the details of that. I've got some other performers that are lined up that we're just getting ready to set some dates for.
So the Lancaster Festival is maybe gone, but it's not forgotten.
No,
still,
it's not forgotten. It's different. We're not in person, but we're definitely still here.
So Gosh, again, some heartbreaking, devastating decisions had to be made by Gary Sheldon, you, the board, but you made the tough calls, and now it's a matter of kind of digging your way back out of this hole. And
It is.
the first time in 36 years we won't have those big Saturday night acts to attend at Ohio University Lancaster. So it's going to be a little different summer here for us, much different for you.
Much different.
To going 100 miles an hour and now having to slow down to maybe 80 miles an hour.
Right.
But a lot still goes on with you. You still have a lot of activities. You still have a lot of meetings,
We do.
things going on. So best of luck with the fundraising aspect. We'll be in touch as the summer moves on. Deb Connell, who is the executive director of the Lancaster Festival. Tough call. I know everybody is heartbroken with the city and the mayor. We've talked to everybody, the county officials. Everybody feels this a little
I
bit.
know.
Nobody more than you and your group of people.
I
But
know.
Thanks for making the tough calls, and like everything else, we hope it'll be back bigger and better next year.
Definitely will.
Very
Will
good.
be. Thank you
Very
so
good.
much for having me.
Deb Connell, the executive director of the Lancaster Festival, and thank you for joining us on Fairfield Today.
Innerphase Video, in cooperation with Fairfield Federal, presents Fairfield Today. Brought to you by Fairfield Federal Savings and Loan, Fairfield Medical Center, Fair Hope Hospice and Palliative Care, the Frankie Smith Funeral Home, Fairfield County Adam H., Dagger Law, and the Fairfield County Board of Developmental Disabilities.